You are listening to a recording from the 2021 PM&R Scholars Virtual Residency Fair. We would like to take a moment to thank the residency programs who have taken the time to present at our fair this year. This year's PM&R Scholars Virtual Residency Fair is supported by PM&R Recap, the best resource for your Physiatry clinical preparation, audition rotations, board preparation, and beyond. PM&R Recap offers 35 hours of review videos, hundreds of review questions, and even oral board cases. Head to pmnrrecap.com to learn more.
Hi everyone, I am Kim Barker. I am the Residency Program Director. Hold on, let me make sure I show this correctly. I'm sorry, I'm also at home and my kids are helping clean up after dinner, so they're kind of loud and screaming. And also my son dropped water on his shorts, so he may not be wearing shorts if he happens to walk in. So, just beware. Does everyone see the PowerPoint? Okay, perfect. So as you all heard, it's UT Southwestern. Unlike, it's not name intuitive, UT Southwestern is in Dallas, Texas. It is part of the University of Texas Systems. It's the only one that's not associated with like an undergrad though. It is a medical school, medical center, obviously. And also there's a PT school, a PA school, and a grad school for some kind of basic sciences and research. It is, like I said, in Dallas, and Dallas is part of the Metroplex that we call the DFW Metroplex, Dallas-Fort Worth. There are about 7.5 million people in the Metroplex. It's one of the top growing metroplexes or urban areas in the nation. There are a lot of big companies moving to the northern part of the Metroplex, the kind of northern suburbs, which is bringing a lot of new clinics, new healthcare opportunities, a lot of growth in like sports medicine and kind of mild TBI and concussion, and just more community care because of the growth of the Metroplex. It's it's not a big urban city. All right. Sorry, it's not a big urban center in the same sense of like New York City or Chicago. It's a little bit more spread out in a kind of a, if you've ever been to Texas and the other big cities in Texas were kind of like a Southern California, where most people will still be driving, although there is public transportation. There's lots of things to do. I have some pictures of the running trails and the parks. Down in the lower left is Clyde Warren Park, which is actually the top of a highway system, and they, instead of just having ugly streets and sidewalks, they turned it into a beautiful park. And there's lots of activities, and there's food trucks there on the weekends. There's lots of lakes in the Dallas area as well. They're actually quite large lakes. They're all man-made. They're large enough to actually sail, so quite a few people will sail, but there's also other things to do, just kayaking, paddleboarding, fishing, those kind of things. I would say most of the residents will live close to the medical center in Dallas, but some of them will venture out to the suburbs if they want a bigger house or more land. Every once in a while, there's a resident that lives out in Fort Worth and will either drive or take the train back and forth. And there's a few faculty that live in Fort Worth. Your training, if you were to come here for residency, is going to be mostly at Parkland Hospital, which is the bottom right picture, and then also at UT Southwestern, which is pictured up in the top left. Parkland is a very large county hospital. It's going to be the nicest county hospital you'd ever see. Quite a lot of taxpayer money went into it. It is, I forgot all my stats from last year that I always repeat, but I think it's about 800 beds. There's 200 ER beds alone. It is, if you remember in your mid-school training, if you remember learning the Parkland burn formula, this is where the Parkland burn formula is from. So it's a level 1 trauma and level 1 burn center. It's a level 1 burn center for North Texas, parts of Oklahoma, and actually Arkansas. So we get a lot of burn patients and a lot of opportunities there. But like I said, it's a level 1 trauma center, so you see lots of polytrauma and traumatic brain injury and spinal cord injury. The UT Southwestern Hospital is it's just right across the street in essence, and it sees a slightly different population. It's more of a tertiary and quaternary care center in which you will see a lot more solid organ transplants. You'll see heart and lung, liver transplants. You'll also see a lot of cancer patients and bone marrow transplant patients. So it serves a slightly different population. There's a lot of neurovascular patients that we see on the rehab side, as the neurosurgeons at UT Southwestern are world renowned for neurovascular cases. You can also see pictures of Children's Medical Center in the lower left. That's where we get our PEDS rehab experience. And then in the top right are pictures of Texas Health Resources Presbyterian Dallas, which is one of the more like community hospitals that the residents get experience doing inpatient rehab at, and then also the VA of North Texas. There's quite a few rotations there from the PM&R side in spinal cord injury. Just an overview of the department. The PM&R department itself is over 50 years old. It's actually the only department in the US of any specialty to have 3 women chairs in a row now. So you can see in the pictures, Dr. Fela Helm was the first chair, and then it was Dr. Kowalski, who's still with us in the department, and then Dr. Bell. There's 40 plus physician faculty. There's another dozen or so non-physician faculty, like psychologists and researchers. There's a newly renovated research space. There's lots of new clinical facilities and locations. I kind of mentioned the growth of Dallas-Fort Worth, which has allowed us to have a lot of new clinics and new hospitals. Both the Parkland Hospital was built in 2015, and then the Clements Hospital was built 2014, but the 3rd tower was just opened this past winter. We're part of the model systems for brain injury, and we also are part of the model systems for burn. Overview of the residency program. We've had a residency here since '77, and we've been ACGME accredited since '78. It's one of the larger PM&R residency programs. We have 6 interns, and then we have 9 residents per year. So there's a total of 33 residents between intern year and the 4th year. I really believe in having a broad curriculum and covering everything. As program director, it's my job to give you your general physiatry knowledge so you can pass boards. If you want to subspecialize, I do believe for the majority of people, fellowship is the best way to subspecialize. So my job is to make sure that you guys pass boards and know all the general physiatry that you can know. So you get to experience all of that, and you also have exposures to a lot of subspecialty niche work like sports medicine, spine, brain injury. There's pelvic floor rehab, cancer rehab, lots of other little things that you can delve into if you're interested. It's a nice, friendly learning environment. It's a variety of patient populations that you get to work with. I mentioned the county hospital, so you work with a lot of uninsured or underinsured patients. You also work with the veterans at the VA, and then you have the more academic and the community hospital experience. It's also one of the more hands-on residency programs. The residents get a ton of procedures. They get a ton of peripheral joint injections, spasticity injections, and spine injections as well. Just some pictures of the faculty and to show what people are doing. In the upper left, there's Dr. Afechka and then Dr. Sin, who's some of our faculty. They were doing a part of a leadership and also lobbying effort by PM&R a couple of years ago. And then in the middle, there's a picture of Dr. Kowalski there, who is part of the board for AAP. And I think she's in line to be the president in the next couple of years. Not the current president, but I think after that she'll be elected. In the top right, a couple of years ago, or I guess a little bit longer now, some of the faculty were getting a refresher course on intrathecal backlift and pumps. So we're using Dr. Gould's teddy bear, Pumpo Bear, who has an intrathecal pump implanted into his abdomen. And everybody was practicing interrogating it and accessing it. And then a couple pictures of the faculty and some of the residents and their families too. The bottom right is the last in-person holiday party we had. We did not have one last year because of the pandemic, but this was from 2019, and it was the ugly sweater contest. And then from a few years ago now, AAP down in Puerto Rico. Some pictures of the residents, some of them during the pandemic, some of them pre-pandemic, but you can see the residents really, I think it's nice to have a big residency program because there's a lot of people to be friends with. And if you don't have, you'll find someone that has the similar interest with you. And someone's always going to be available to hang out on the weekends. There's lots of events that we do, from wellness events or just people hanging out. The top left was actually, I don't think we do it anymore, but we definitely could. It was Baylor Dallas is the other PM&R residency program in the Metroplex, and we were having a football game against Baylor Dallas. We won. Don't worry, we won. But then just other pictures of the residents from recent years. Just some other kind of housekeeping stuff. We have 3 chiefs. We have Austin, who's on. He's the research and development chief. I don't think Kyle's on. I think he's on vacation. He's the administrative chief. And I'm not sure if Annie Abraham, who's the academic chief, was able to make it. Terry Isabel is our wonderful program coordinator. She is on vacation in Florida, so I know she's not on right now. But if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to any of those people. If you have questions about the residency and what it's like, definitely email one of the chiefs. If you have questions about the application process or anything like that, definitely email Terry. She is your girl to answer any of those questions. She's been a PM&R program coordinator for at least a decade, I think a little bit longer. So she knows everything there is to know about PM&R. She also knows everybody in the PM&R residency world. So if you have questions about other programs, I bet she could answer them for you. But that's it. That's all I got. Let me stop sharing my screen. And we have some residents on that can answer questions, as well as Kayla, who is our Peds Rehab Fellow. She was one of our residents and she graduated, and we were lucky enough to match her, and she is staying with us. There's no questions. I'll ask questions. I will put Kayla on the spot since she finished. I'll ask Kayla, what was your favorite part of the residency program?
My favorite part was probably just the people, like both my co-residents as well as the faculty. Like everyone just is really welcoming, very smart. And that's one of the reasons why I wanted to come to UT Southwestern, because I did an away rotation, and while I was there, everyone was just so welcoming, but also like so smart, but still like so fun outside of work. And it just felt so relaxed, but I could tell that people were going to be like well equipped when they left. So my favorite part has definitely been like the people. And that's why I've stayed too. I moved here to Dallas from the East Coast, so I really didn't know anyone. Well, I didn't know anyone, but I felt like because of that experience, I would be able to really like enjoy myself and get what I needed out of it, which I feel like I did. So people for me.
And Dr. Barker, I'll echo that as well. I think that's a huge part of the program, are the people that comprise it, both the residents as well as the faculty, because people really do get along well here. And I think there's things in place that help support the residents that are in place, whether it's between classes or within classes. So I think between the people first and foremost, and secondly, for me, it's the hands-on component of the residency program. I know Dr. Barker touched on that, but for those of you that may be a bit more interventionally inclined, let's put it that way, like the sports or spasticity or spine or pain, plenty of opportunities to get your hands on with all of those procedures. And Kayla, it looks like we've got a question for you, if you could touch on the PEDS rotation.
Sure. So that's an area that's actually grown since I've been here. At current, you can correct me if I'm wrong, anyone, I guess Dr. Barker or Austin, but there's 2 major PEDS rotations that are built into the curriculum. One during the second year where you do some PEDS inpatient experience, and then one during the third year where you get to do some consults and some clinic work, which is kind of unique in that a lot of other programs may not have quite that much PEDS exposure, and especially not that early on. So I think it's a great exposure, and they have a fellowship here. So you have plenty of patient diversity, plenty of faculty diversity. So you really do get a good taste of what PEDS rehab is, if that's something you're interested in, or if that's not what you're interested in.
We have about 5 minutes left.
We'll kind of go rapid fire through some of these question. So the unique nature of the patient population, and Ronnie, Masha, Michael, Cindy, anyone can kind of chime in on this as well. But I think the thing that Dr. Barker touched on is that you really get different patient populations in each location that you're in. So when you're at Parkland, you're primarily dealing with or underinsured patient population, and a significant portion being Spanish-speaking population. I don't speak Spanish. There's no problem. There's plenty of interpreter services, but I think having that is one aspect. From there, you tend to have more of your private insured white-collar patients coming through the UT Southwestern side. You get veterans, you get a true peds rehab rotation, both through an inpatient rehab experience at our children's house that Kayla was touching on that you do during your second year, as well as peds rehab during consult rotations and outpatient as a third year. And then you also get community clinic through our Presby rotation. And then what is call like? So we do a night float system. So you do 3 weeks of night float Monday through Friday. It's 5 p.m. to 8 a.m. second and third year. And then you have about 6 weekend 24-hour call days, second and third year. The second years cover holidays. You typically have 2 holidays. Fourth year, you have no call. So I'm a very happy camper at the moment.
And my name is Masha. I'm one of the PGY3s. I actually like the call schedule system that we have with the night float, because when you're on night float, you tend to start to learn and understand the patients that you already have, and it continues that relationship with the nurses that you have working with you. And so it's nice that you're not going for a 24-hour call every like 4th day or something. I feel like you get plenty of rest on those days.
2 minutes left.
We hang out a bunch as between classes. Particularly our class, we all get along really well. Some of them are actually at trivia tonight. But I am one of the residents that lives outside in Fort Worth area, so I didn't make the commute this evening to do that. But it's really nice that we all get along and celebrate birthdays outside of clinic times, and actually enjoy hanging out with each other.
Masha, there's a question about very large dog friendly. If Dallas is very large dog friendly, you want to touch on that one?
Yes, Dallas is very large dog friendly. I have a 150-pound Great Dane. There's tons of places you can take them. There's tons of dog parks. A lot of restaurants have open patios, and they bring their dog out there, and it's really nice, especially with the weather being a little bit warmer over the summer. They're really conscientious about making sure there's shady areas outside for dogs.
I guess Great Danes are like the theme of our residency, because Terry has a Great Dane, and then Chen, who graduated a couple of years, also had a Great Dane. I just actually realized that. So how many?
Oh, go ahead, Dr. Barker.
I was going to say, I think about half are married. Not a ton have kids right now. It ebbs and flows. There's some years where there's a lot of residents have a lot of kids, and then there's other classes where nobody has a kid. The cost of living in Dallas is actually very good. I didn't put that in the slide. Terry actually has that slide if you interview. But the cost of living in Dallas is actually very good compared to cities like Chicago, New York, San Francisco, that sort of thing. It's probably a little bit more than Houston, but it's a really good cost of living, quality of life you get. You actually get paid a pretty good amount too, considering the cost of living is low here. Not that that should be why you rank someone.
Yeah. I mean, coming from Houston, originally the cost of living is comparable. It's not that significantly different.
That's all the time we have. Feel free to continue answering questions in the chat, but we're going to move on to our next program. Thank you so much, UT Southwestern, for being on and sharing your thoughts with us.